Hey everybody, Jamie Starr here for the New World News Network. Tonight, I'm going to do a video that's, it was kind of inspired by, friend of the channel, Martina Marcota's last live stream last Sunday. Her and, Margaret Spelly, yes Margaret. They do a live stream every week. It's really cool. Everyone should check it out. They were talking, though, about bands they used to listen to when they were younger. Margaret had mentioned System of the Down. They had also mentioned Marilyn Manson. I used to listen to Marilyn Manson. I had probably dressed as Marilyn Manson for Halloween one year when I was a kid. I remember very specifically when Mechanical Animals came out. My mom not wanting me to get the album. Of course, I got a copy of it on cassette from a friend, or maybe a burnt CD at that time. And yeah, I was a big Marilyn Manson fan. But the thing is after them bringing him up in the live stream, I started really looking at things. Like, alright, you know how Gavin McInnes is sort of credited as being the godfather of hipsterdom? Even, like, it was like things he had did that have sort of now trickled down into the kind of ironic fashion, weirdo, sort of noir style that hipsters go with. Yeah, and even though he's not directly, you know, putting these things out, he's credited with being the godfather of it. I think in the same sort of sense, you could say Marilyn Manson is the godfather of the modern radical left. The similarities are numerous. So let's first lay out some points as to what we can use to define the modern radical left. The modern radical left would be against America, anti-American, even though it's the freest country in the world, but against America. Flag burning. One of the, you know, at the protests, think Antifa. The other thing it would be the whole gender ideology, transgender, gender fluidity, things like that. Sort of just overall degradation, degeneracy, the idea of holding up ugliness and trying to say it's beautiful and artistic and just, I don't know, basically giving someone a pile of shit and telling them they should look at it like it's a Van Gogh or something like that. So there's obviously the attacks on Christianity. I mean, you rail against Christianity all day, but don't say anything about Islam. And, you know, there's all those things, and I think there's other things you could kind of tie into the anti-American thing, being against guns and all of that. So, those are the tenets of the modern American lefty. So Marilyn Manson, I'll give you guys a little bit of backstory on him. The name comes from, he had all the band members, as you can see here, Daisy Berkowitz, Marilyn Manson, Twiggy Ramirez. It's a combination of like fashionista, model, sex symbol with serial killer, kind of mashed together. So you had Twiggy Ramirez, Madonna Wayne Gacy, so on and so forth. Marilyn Manson has always sort of put different cultural influences into his work. You can see his first album here, Portrait of an American Family, and this, obviously, you know, taking shots at Americana, songs like Get Your Gun, Lunchbox, let's see here. Even in here it says, I was looking at it earlier, let's see, it's all about the Sharon Tate murders. Where's stuff where it talks about Roald Dahl? The record contains a wide variety of cultural references, beginning with the first track. The poem recited in Prelude, Family Trip, is an adaptation of the Rowing Song by Roald Dahl, originally from the 1964 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Cake and Sodomy is about being in a hotel room and watching public access television, and a juxtaposition of Pat Robertson and porn on the other channel. Lunchbox was inspired by a 1972 law introduced by the Florida legislature, which made it illegal to carry a metal lunchbox on school grounds. It tells the story of a bullied child who uses a lunchbox as a defensive weapon and proclaims that one day he will be a big rock and roll star. The track incorporates elements of blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So, again, this is one of the things where Manson takes this sort of, through his artwork, has this, like, underdog attitude, like, oh, I'm a weirdo, I'm a freak, I was picked on, fuck you Christians, fuck you religious right. Like, I mean, it's that mentality of the liberal where it's like, I'm a weirdo, but instead of, you know, me wanting to accept that I live in the freest country on earth, I'm gonna lash out and fucking bully and make fun of and take issue with everything else that, you know, every 99% of the world is happy with and feels morally uplifted by. But because it doesn't work for me, well, I have to attack it to feel better about the fact that I'm a fucking freak. The song Get Your Gun, lyrics to Get Your Gun were inspired by the murder of physician Dr. David Gunn, who was killed by a self-proclaimed pro-life activist. Manson described that the murder was the ultimate hypocrisy witnessed growing up, that these people killed someone in the name of being pro-life. Well, let's see. You have a doctor performing abortions. That's their 9 to 5. So let's say even if they're just doing one a day, 365, 52 weeks a year. I mean, I guess they're taking off on weekends, but hundreds of lives. Get rid of. I mean, it'd be like. I mean, you know, the other thing is Manson has an obsession with Nazism, the same way the modern left does. Constantly buying paraphernalia, putting representations of it in his videos and stuff like that. Doing the whole march on stage. And it'd be like saying, oh, well, you know, if you had a chance to kill Hitler before the genocides, you know, you'd be a hypocrite because you'd be a murderer and he's a murderer. It's a moral relativist mindset and outlook on things. I mean, this coming from the guy who's calling himself Marilyn Manson. You're glorifying serial killers. It's just, I mean, ridiculous. So, you can go through all that, and that's the foot he started out on. Then from there, you go into Antichrist Superstar, which I'm not even going to get into the lyrics. You know, one of the things is, I think you can say about Marilyn Manson, he is similar to Dr. Jordan Peterson, where he's really good at appearing intelligent and insightful, but to people who are actually intelligent, they just seem nuts. Like, and they just sort of pull from vague references, and, you know, Marilyn Manson will write songs about, you know, John Kennedy and reference ancient Greek literature and, like, just pull in all these sort of vague references where you're like, oh, this guy must really be knowledgeable of something, but not so much. One of the things on that, though, I did come across this site. I hope I have them all up in here. Where is it? There's some site, yeah. This site, which is a, you know, very pro-Christian, anti-Marilyn Manson website that just sort of goes into all this stuff about promoting Satanism, homosexuality, lesbianism, whatever. I didn't realize this, or maybe I did and I just forgot about it, but this is the back cover art for Antichrist Superstar, and as you can see, Marilyn Manson has an attachment on his junk that is supposed to be feeding his urine through a tube into the mouths of his bandmates. So, there you go. That's what we're dealing with. Now, this was another one of the things, Holywood, as you can see, sort of a mock crucifixion. It says here, just like the KKK, which are Democrats, Marilyn Manson burns crosses. That's the Last Tour on Earth album. He also had a album or a tour called Guns, God, and Government Tour, which again is sort of a jab to Americana and all of that. Let's see. You know, obviously there's this whole thing about him being linked to Columbine. I don't agree with any of that nonsense. I think it's sort of bullshit to try to link him to you know, people will do their own things. It's like the idea that video games, like if you're playing first person shooters, you're gonna go shoot some shit up. Well, if that were the case, we'd have millions of shootings all over. It's the same thing when people talk about these shootings and prescription medications and all that. If everyone who was taking Zoloft or Klonopin or one of those was gonna go fuck some shit up, you would have shootings on every corner of America, period. But here you also see, here's him ripping pages out of a Bible, and it's all just sort of meant to be shocking or whatever, and maybe in the 90s it was a bit shocking, but the fact that you still have people sort of, like, I feel like this is stuff I would see like someone doing at a local hole-in-the-wall drag show or something. Yeah, here's more of his preaching, Kurt Cobain too. Let's see. Oh, a bit on Kurt Cobain. So anyway, let me go back into this stuff. Here's the thing I was saying about the flag burning. Here's Marilyn Manson burning an American flag. Now, do you really think Marilyn Manson could get away with being Marilyn Manson anywhere else in the world? I mean, yeah, there's the death metal countries of like Germany and all of that like him, and he's big over there. But really, you're only allowed this sort of freedom, and could only America is the place where you can indulge in the fullest extent of freedoms you are allowed here, and hate it and be against it at the same time, and somehow end up a fucking millionaire in the process and act like a fucking ingrate along the way. Here you can see him in some of the pseudo-Nazi attire. Very little picture there. Here's an article I found here. Bandmate sues Marilyn Manson over Nazi purchases. Shock rocker Marilyn Manson is being sued by a bandmate for using their earnings to buy Nazi paraphernalia. African mask made of human skin, the full skeleton of a 4-year-old Chinese girl, and Tita Von Teese's engagement ring. The 24-count, 96-page breach of contract complaint filed by founding Marilyn Manson keyboardist Stephen Gregory Beer in Los Angeles alleges that Manson, 38, commingled his own money with that of the band's merchandising and touring companies despite a 1993 partnership agreement. According to the suit, the band money also paid for Manson's collections of Nazi artifacts, including SS typewriters, swastika wall tiles he had installed in his home library ceiling with custom rugs made to match, and the Nazi government coat hangers owned by Adolf Hitler. Manson is also accused of buying a handbag that once belonged to Hitler's mistress, Eva Braun, which he later gave to his then-fiancée, Tita Von Teese, and collecting taxidermy models of animals, and so on and so forth. So, Nazi obsession for whatever reason. Let's see, here's a whole thing about his degenerate art and sort of comparing it to fascism and everything like that. I don't know if whose site this is, if this is actually one of his sites or just kind of a tribute site to him. But it has all sorts of stuff here. Here you can see a watercolor painting he did of Hitler with tits and looking all sorts of trans Hitler water painting. Nazi symbols, Nazi bunny rabbit creature. Let's see. You can also see blackface. Here's him with... here's a quote from Marilyn Manson from 2003. "All the art we have done has many levels, but in regards to Mickey, his image was also considered to be degenerate by the fascist government in 1930s Germany. In America, he represented so much more. These are pieces of the imagination, no more, no less." There's a picture from 1987. Here's Marilyn Manson doing his own sort of blackface thing. Blackface with the Mickey ears. Let's see. I mean, just all sorts of pseudo-fascist iconography in the logos. There's with the helmets and all that. Let's see. Manson donning his SS-inspired visor cap for the fight song video. There's different soldier helmets. I mean, and, you know, the Nazis, to some extent, when you look into some of the more conspiratorial views behind it, was, so pretty much a death cult. Prussian Death's head hussar uniform and Manson in full performance regalia during the summer 2001 Ozfest portion of the Guns, God, and Government World Tour. Also a modernification of anti-Christian tyrant and alleged biblical beast of the Revelation, Nero Caesar. Photograph of Manson with his metal teeth, mouse-eared cap, and identifiable SS Death Heads badge from his Golden Age of Grotesque collaboration. And here's the lightning bolt symbol. 1930s Manson tearing pages from the Bible, religious evangelists as fascists from his shock podium. And I mean, if you put these two of these little lightning bolts side by side, you'd pretty much have the SS logo. There's his cross made out of guns. Again, this is all sort of the gun crucifixion is all sort of this mocking of, let's see, the love song, Manson on the Guns, God, and Government Tour in Moscow, leader of another Nuremberg-esque rally for our society today where violence is religion and where fame and death on camera is better than life itself, as symbolized by the gun crucifixion. Capitalism has made it this way. Old-fashioned fascism will take it away. Here you can see him using George Bush and Hitler for flyers. When I see the sun, you're as pretty as a swastika. Oh, such deep genius lyrics. I mean, it's a, like, do you see what I mean about the Nazi sort of fanaticism pulsing through Marilyn Manson? I mean, this is not creative. This is just, it's a cheap imitation. Like, it seems very forced and contrived, but if, you know, he's personally buying this stuff, it's not just an act. This is just what he's into. Manson mimicking the day the dead clown cried with a projection of Hitler in the background for the video Personal Jesus. In the video, alternations with pictures of George W. Bush and Christ. So let's see. Here's a funny point that I was going to make about this. You remember this? This is, I guess, is sort of the vague hipsterdom analogy. Look at that, right? Now, do we remember Big Red Feminist? Remember her? Look at him. Let me see if I can pull that out. Look at her. and look at him. You'd think they have the same stylist. You would think, right? I mean, that's not one of my major points here, but they kind of, just saying, look like they'd have the same stylist. So, as far as the whole gender thing, during the mechanical animal period, you had him wearing this sort of breasted suit. There's one of the get-ups. There's the cover art where it's this sort of genderless alien type thing. He's got tits, but no dick. Why all the pictures I click on that I want to show you guys are all super fucking small? There's the burning cross. But all sorts of, like, semi in drag, not fully really, but, you know, just gender fluidity, basically. Back then, though. I mean, this was the early 2000s. I didn't know they were making Marilyn Manson toys. So yeah, that was his whole shtick then. After pulling pages out of the Bible and burning shit and all of that, got sort of played out. Well, then he decided he was going to go Bowie. Which I'm gonna, when I tie this up at the end, I'm gonna make a point about that. So that was him in his Bowie phase. And again, there was a lot of stuff musically on the Mechanical Animals album that I liked. But in retrospect, like, I think about it where, you're always told you are what you eat, and, what you put into your body will make you who you are. Well, I try to be that way, and I've said this in numerous videos. I especially reference, that's why I don't watch Quentin Tarantino films. I try to give just as much consideration towards what I am taking in through my ears and my eyes. That what I take in, music-wise, visually, is going to end up making up who I am. So, that whole gender fluidity thing, and all of this just sort of carried through. Now, let's see. One of the things to keep in mind is when you had people protesting music and wanting to slap parental advisory stickers and everything on it, it wasn't always the right. Tipper Gore was one of the main people, Al Gore's ex-wife, that pushed for the parental advisory stickers. And one of the things, though, this is sort of the weird thing about liberalism, they will act as if they want to try to censor something, while in the process, it says here, Greg Vieto of Reason observed that by the 1990s, a hip-hop album that didn't warrant a Tipper sticker was artistically suspect. Like, if you wanted to be rebellious, you needed to buy the version with the parental advisory sticker. It was almost a sign-off. Here's the picture with the tubes and all that nonsense. Antichrist Superstar, lightning bolt thing there. There's also all sorts of weirdo shit that I had saw about his grandfather being into bestiality and him going to school and putting one of his grandfather's dildos in his Bible teacher's desks, and this is that story. Marilyn Manson did something shocking with his grandfather's dildo. Just a fucking sick person. And here, Marilyn Manson gets protested by the right and everything like that, and people try to censor him. And in his latest video, acclaimed glam rockers, latest video for Satan, but he's blatantly satanic. You don't even need to get into that. Fan of Anton LaVey, Aleister Crowley, so on and so forth. Features him laying waste to a man who looks an awful lot like Donald Trump. And you guys can check that out on your own time, but there you see that, and him looking like he's beheaded him or something. I don't know. Strange reason Marilyn Manson admires Trump. Now listen to this. Now, Marilyn Manson has said, even during the Mechanical Animals album, that he was doing a lot of coke. And coke makes people really impulsive and sort of erratic. Now imagine being a millionaire and doing coke and all these drugs and everything. And you read this story, and it's about how, let's see, in a recent interview with Rolling Stone, Manson described how Trump Tower once hit helped him hide from the police when there was a warrant out for his arrest. I do admire the fact that he created Trump Tower, because when I did an interview and it went wrong, I got arrested for putting a gun in the mouth of an editor of Spin. I hid from the law there. Hold on. What? In 1998, Manson and his bodyguards allegedly assaulted Spin magazine editor Craig Marks, who then filed a lawsuit. According to an article by MTV News at the time, Manson reportedly threatened Marks because of a magazine cover dispute, saying, "I can kill you. I can kill your family. I can kill everyone you know." I mean, artistic genius or drug addict nutcase? You take your pick. It seems to me like he's just a fucking hot mess. Hot mess with a lot of money. Now, here's the point, the overall point I was going to try to make, and this is how he sort of ties in to the modern left. In the 90s and early 2000s, you had Marilyn Manson with his whole, "I'm a freak, I'm so different, I have no gender, I want to worship Satan and cut myself," like, and all that nonsense, right? Well, then Lady Gaga comes out, and it's like, "I'm a freak, and I was born this way, and you need to love and accept my freakiness." And it's like, the people don't realize they're on the same record label. Like, you basically have these record label people who are like, "Oh yeah, David Bowie, go out into as this androgynous sort of space cowboy, whatever nonsense. Now David Bowie's not so cool. So now, instead of glam rock doing it, we're gonna have Marilyn Manson with his, metal music, doing the same gimmicks, different sound. Then now Marilyn Manson isn't cool, so now we're gonna have Lady Gaga doing it. Same gimmicks, different sound." And there's just, you can go through these, both of them with the Mickey Mouse iconography, both of them looking like weirdos, painting lightning bolts on their faces. There's another interesting picture I saw, and they did do a remix together. People are thinking they're actually working on another song together, too. There's one of them, like a side-by-side thing. Now that's a funny one, where they've put Marilyn Manson's head on her, because you can kind of just swap the two out. Trying to look for both of them looking like weirdos there. Oh, here's, these sort of mechanical prosthetic bodysuit type things. Marilyn Manson did the video for Beautiful People where he's all on the stilts and can't move. She does that type of stuff. That's sort of Egyptian garb. She's done Egyptian garb. Again, same gimmicks, different sound. That's all it really is. The two are very comparable, and Lady Gaga just has sort of taken that mainstream into a modern pop sound that is more palatable to everyone. Is this really a picture of her? I mean, that looks like one of fucking Marilyn Manson's water paintings on her fucking face. What is wrong with these people? Are Marilyn Manson and Lady Gaga collaborating? And this was one of the things that looks like it's straight out of Mechanical Animals. So that's sort of my point with all of this, that there's this sort of thread that you can sort of see where the attitudes put forth by Marilyn Manson in the early 90s and everything like that, everything he did on stage that was sort of shocking and, protested and everything like that, we now see being done and taken on by protesters. Like, there was a carrying of the torch and maybe a pass off to Lady Gaga at one point, but the fuck Christianity, the flag burning, the taking issue with guns and the American gun culture while sticking a gun in the mouth of an editor you have a beef with over a cover of a magazine. Come on. But it really is like Marilyn Manson is the godfather of the modern radical left. there's so much more detail you could get into in his lyrics and everything of the such, but I mean, it's almost so obvious. I think I can just point to these sort of surface level things, and so yeah, I just wanted to share that. I thought it crossed my mind when they had mentioned him during the fucking video and all that. And check out their stream this Sunday. I'm gonna upload this tonight. Hopefully me and Paul will do a video tomorrow. I'm gonna do another hour of hate stream. So take care, everyone. Have a good one.